Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain, and it was only a matter of time before this happened. At long last, an anime video. At least if you don't count my Avatar video, but we can have that debate some other time. Originally, I was going to start this new chapter of my YouTube channel with a Naruto video, or even a ReZero video, both of which I'll probably still make someday. But while doing a lot of thinking, I was inspired to make this video focusing on my all-time favorite anime. If there's enough interest, then I'll definitely talk about the show more completely in due course. But before we do that, I wanted to first discuss the often underappreciated but absolutely essential character that is Kazuma Kuwabara, and as per usual, we'll start at the beginning. Kuwabara is initially portrayed as a self-proclaimed tough punk. He's big, imposing, has a gang of friends, plenty of street cred, and the voice work done by the always excellent Christopher Sabat adds so much to his character. In many ways, he is that guy. You know the guy. The guy in the group who's not as strong as the main character, but always talks a big game, especially early on. The unique thing about Yu Yu Hakusho is how said main character starts to show dead for a while. This plot point allowed Kuwabara to gain character depth since neither Hiei nor Kurama are introduced until episode 6 after Yusuke is brought back. We quickly realize that while he is many of the things his initial characterization implies, there's so much more to him than just being a thug. Even his constant ass-kicking at the hands of Yusuke has a deeper meaning to him, but, more to the point, Kuwabara isn't dumb. Academically unmotivated most of the time, yes, but not at all lacking mentally. When he needs to push himself in the classroom, he shows the ability to do so, even if it meant barely scraping by early on, similar to many of his early fights. Episode 3 probably isn't one of the better episodes in the grand scheme of things, but it does give us insight into Kuwabara's potential. Over the course of the series, Kuwabara goes through a lot of physical growth. That is to be expected of a shonen anime, of course, but with him, it often flies under the radar versus all the growth Yusuke gets. So much so that during the Sensui arc, Seaman is completely baffled by the fact that all of his friends don't really get his level of importance. Kuwabara isn't a spirit detective, nor is he a demon, but in a way, that makes his presence that much more valuable. He fails a lot. He gets his butt kicked a lot, but he always pushes through. The biggest point being that regardless of his win-loss record, he is the one member of Team Urameshi that doesn't have to be there, but chooses to be, in spite of his disadvantages. As you may recall, Hiei and Kurama were conscripted by Koenma to join the team to atone for some fairly serious crimes. Even Genkai's addition to the team later on felt necessary from her point of view. At this point, and most points, Kuwabara is objectively the weakest of the main characters, but he shows up anyways and backs down to nobody, not even Toguro. Kuwabara is a character that isn't defined by his strength and upbringing so much as he is defined by his code and his heart, making him a great counterpart to Yusuke, who is largely defined by emotional inhibition and an overall less stringent attitude towards rules in general. That's the biggest reason that Kuwabara's attempted sacrifice at the hands of Toguro allowed Yusuke to break through that emotional barrier, thus granting him the power he needed to win. Kuwabara isn't afraid of his emotions, he embraces them and is often guided by them, something Yusuke has to learn. And even before that powerful moment, Kuwabara made emotional confessions to Kurama, the masked fighter, and even Hiei during one of his biggest fights. That same emotional competence gives Kuwabara a unique and almost innate understanding of who other people really are or can be. He recognizes that there is more to Hiei than his constant putdowns. Hiei doesn't really give him any reason to assume that, but somehow he just knows it, or at the very least, believes it. And we, the audience, know he's right because of everything Hiei went through for the sake of his sister. Kuwabara is more than just a big-hearted fighter. He's the heart of the team, and perhaps the most humanizing part of the entire show. But just as important in terms of character dynamics has to be his older sister Shizuru. We never learn anything about Mr. or Mrs. Kuwabara in the anime, so Shizuru, who also embraces unwavering toughness, represents the only real authority figure in Kuwabara's life, someone he truly respects and listens to. There's not a terribly large emphasis placed on the handful of sibling pairs in the show, but all of them are unique and add something to the characters, except in Kurama's case since it was more his mother that gave context to several of his character traits, but Shizuru was essential. In many ways, she's a version of Yusuke who Kuwabara can't challenge in the same way, or even at all most of the time. Both characters pushed him to be better, but with Yusuke becoming a demon and Shizuru probably not one herself, that role eventually became all hers, which is as good a transition as any to Kuwabara's final bits of development. We know that Kuwabara goes through a lot during the series, and eventually he unlocks a dimension-shattering super sword that more or less puts him on par with everyone else. He literally went through hell and back to earn that power, and my god, did it feel amazing every time that Giganto score hit. And the idea of his journey as a fighter ending right then and there was handled beautifully. After Sensui is taken down, Kuwabara is the only one of the main four who isn't a demon. Because of their unique pasts and demon ancestry, the team minus Kuwabara now needs to deal with the unrest in Demon World, a world that Kuwabara doesn't fit into, a world that he has no real connection to outside of his friends. For the first time, he simply can't jump right in alongside Yusuke. Kuwabara's reaction to all of this was expected, but also perfect. It's completely within character for him to want to fight the good fight together with his boys, especially since those same boys could have ended up fighting each other. Even when all he had was his junior high pals, that was still his MO. So, Kuwabara's arc then resolves not by journeying back into Demon World and likely hanging around Raizen's domain with Yusuke, but through him finally making the most of the living world that he is connected to. His arc concludes in the same place where that seemingly unimportant early episode ends, with him succeeding academically. And when Yusuke sees him fighting a brand new battle, a clever parallel to that aforementioned episode, he's that much more comfortable leaving him behind to handle the Three Kings arc. Kuwabara's arc doesn't end with him sacrificing himself for the greater good, although he'd be more than willing to. It doesn't end with him inheriting cataclysmic abilities. His unique skill set instead grants him a weapon of great utility, more so than overwhelming power. And it doesn't end with him winning some super dramatic fight. None of that happens, because it ends in a much better way. Kuwabara resolves by taking what he's learned from his adventures, the grittiness, the never back down attitude, the sacrifice, the determination, the drive, and applying all of that to his studies. For Kuwabara, becoming more and more capable throughout the series became a transferable skill. And what happens when he transfers those skills? He nails his exams and gets into a good high school, a great distance removed from barely squeaking by or outright failing exams back when the show started. He doesn't automatically morph into some thick specs wearing scientist sort, because the point is, he never had to change that much to flourish, he just had to put more of himself into it, just like with every fight he's ever won. Kuwabara does a lot of losing over the course of Yu Yu Hakusho, but it never deters him for long, if at all. He stood up to scummy teachers who said he could never do it, and proved them all wrong. He stood up to monsters and demons and psychics, all because he wanted to. And then he stood up to himself and became the best version of Kazuma Kuwabara, a version that isn't defined by being a tough punk, or a fighter, or even a lover, but by being all of those things and more. And in the end, he won when it mattered most, both in the ring and beyond. Yu Yu Hakusho is an exceptional anime with amazing villains, characters, and stories all around, and Yusuke himself is easily one of my all-time favorite anime protagonists. But beyond the many sagas of the Spirit Detective is the story of his loyal lug of a friend. He's Kuwabara, and in case you guys forgot, he's got a sword. And that was my first attempt at an anime video. If you liked it, let me know and I'll try to make more of these kinds of videos. And if you want me to tackle a specific anime or topic, let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.